Alan Grist, Main Roads, and Alan is a project manager with Main Roads. He's based in Mandurah. He's been there since 1974. Some of you weren't even born then, right? That makes you feel old, LA. In his current role of project manager, he's responsible for the management and implementation of all landscaping and rehab programs planned and delivered in the Southwest region, including direct seeding of native species, seedling planting, herbicide application and control, pesticide management, revegetation, maintenance regime, subcontract, operational staff and contract management. Phew. He also did the Alana McTiernan Highway, probably better known to you as the Forest Highway. Please welcome Alan Grist.
Thank you very much for those kind words. I have been working for Main Roads for a while, and I think I might have got headhunted by a couple of people to come along today, but that was successful, so that's good. And I've been involved in a lot of the major projects, and we've got involved in other things apart from possums, nutrient stripping basins and wetlands, and working with the Waste Authority in recycling as well. But the presentation I'm going to give you quickly today, which I will struggle to do, I've had to pirate that from Dr. Brian Chambers, who's also a UWA person. He's put together a pretty good presentation on fauna underpasses, and I've been involved with trying to make decisions on fauna underpasses with very little information in my early part of the Forest Highway design, so this is pretty invaluable. And so, as I said, this is UWA's record of all the study done so far, and there'll be some questions in here that I won't be able to answer, but I have been involved in a lot of the work. So we've looked at the problems, the factors of using the underpasses for quenders, the underpasses, how they affect gene flow, similar to what Gerry has talked about, western grey kangaroos and their use. And we've actually got quite a few underpasses that people would not be aware of. So with the Paganoni Reserve area, the Kwinana Freeway construction has cut access from the Serpentine River to Paganoni Reserve, which is a pretty major area for environmental infrastructure. There's a total of 5 underpasses built underneath the freeway there that allows animals to move. There's other options, such as this one, which is a land bridge, and with the Bunbury Port Access Road we're proposing to build some more land bridges. What Gerry has just provided us with, the Possum Rope Bridge, and just a sample of what some of the underpasses look like. That's only a 600 by 600 box culvert, which people would say, why would you bother? But they work quite well for smaller species, and even some kangaroos are determined enough to get to the other side, and they work in that area. So the fauna underpasses, the problems and the solutions. Anyway, the factors that affect the use and all, and does the underpass result in better gene flow? And once again, the kangaroos, which is a bit of a repetition of what we're doing, but the factors that impact on the underpass use, we'll get lots of other native species moving through them, blue tongues, lots of monitors, snakes even, tiger snakes, and grey kangaroos, but also you get the ones you don't want, the foxes and cats, etc. So I've got some nice happy little snaps of people using them, whole animals using them. This is pretty hard to see, but the little blue dots that are there are where we've got fauna underpasses located, and over the other side they turn into red dots. That's where we've actually seen activity and it's been monitored. The different sizes in underpasses, as I said, we've got 1,200 culverts, right up to 2.3 and 2.4 metre arches, which are massive structures, but are really dual use, the bigger ones. And the the outcome of some of these sort of things is that we've found that like we don't have to spend as much money as we thought on constructing these. We can actually build them in the drainage design and actually get a dual use out of some of them. And if you build them too big, you get the use of underpasses from sources that you don't want, like people and trail bike riders. So UWA has done extensive trapping, and like Curry has been wandering around in the bush for quite some time looking for things. As many people have been wandering around Paganoni Reserve and Roe Highway, etc., at ungodly hours, gathering information, which is very good. We use this is a bed that picks up the microchip, so any microchipped animal that runs across there, that'll pick that up, and that's stored onto a computer that we've got buried in the ground, pretty well securely attached. The population size is estimated for each underpass. There's lots of this information that needs to be gathered together, and Brian Chambers has got all this information, and he's shown it to me a few times, and I've come out there pretty confused, but it would be really good to actually sit down and analyse that in much more detail. So we've come up with the data analysts for the length of and the cross sections of the underpasses, but I've just basically here I've got a few happy snaps of underpasses being used, which to me a picture tells 1,000 words. This is Roe Highway, which is a pretty busy traffic area, so you can say that little critters like this wouldn't last 2 seconds if they tried to cross the road. So. We've got some film stars that you don't want, and film stars that you do want. So he seems to be pretty impressed, this guy. He's got a lot of potential, I think. This particular one here, that's a western kangaroo, 100 metres through a 600mm box culvert. So that's pretty, that's a fair bit of determination. Yep, bobtails definitely do use all different sizes, and we've tried putting furniture in to make provide them with hiding spots, and basically they definitely are able to use them without getting attacked too often. We've got the monitors, and of course everyone's favourite will pop up in a minute, I dare say. Everyone likes watching the snakes, I don't know why. From a distance, a good idea. Our mates, basically the Paganoni and Serpentine area that was split by the freeway, we undertook control programs there to eliminate some foxes. 2 years of trapping, we managed to capture 3 foxes, or eliminate 3 foxes, 2 feral cats, and then on the Mandurah entrance road, similar sort of results. One of the disappointing things there seemed to be a fair few community members that would actually stop you from being successful on pinch traps and all that sort of thing. That seems to be life. So the foxes definitely do use them, but we've actually got a program to actually thin the foxes out, make sure that the underpasses do function. We'll have these feline characters, which once again are not very popular. They actually go and live in the underpasses, so that's pretty good, because when Brian can get the camera downloads, we can actually solve those problems quite easily. Even the little people, they enjoy them. So the mice actually, the cats, they took up residence in some of them, and they enjoyed themselves. Peter Rabbit, yep, he was in there. We have a control program for rabbits too, because we're trying to rehabilitate areas outside these for the landscaping as well, so that's probably not good. That's much better than trying to walk across the freeway, and the success rate for the ducks, we're very happy about that. The next part is really talking about figures and how many observations they've got. But what Brian is trying to show in this next little part of the slide is the frequency of use versus length of underpass, the vegetation around the underpass, etc. And it was quite interesting that some of the things that I thought would be cut and dried didn't turn out that way. Underpass length. Initially, as you can see, if it's a short underpass, it gets better use. And there's some little black dots that you have to look at very carefully. There's some very little black dots which are use. So it's pretty hard to look at that one there, but you're saying an underpass over 90 metres of length. You can see once they're in the underpass, if they've gone 40 metres, they'll go the rest of the way. Vegetation cover. Once again, we found out there's a couple of things. Vegetation cover helps some, and vegetation cover is not really desirable for some other reptiles mainly. They don't like hiding their way through the bush, obviously. The Quenda performance, this is from the row highway, and you can see that the vegetation cover in this one here has a bit of an effect on it. But Brian, unfortunately, was unable to come along and present this, so you could probably ask me some questions of this and I wouldn't be able to answer them. But the other thing is that time since construction with Curry's, with the Possum bridge being used straight away, that was fantastic. And we've certainly found that with the underpasses that have been constructed, that if we built the the fencing structures with them, they got used fairly quickly. So I'll just zip through this because I'll get into trouble for being here for too long. And basically, we can come back and find out more about that sort of information if it's interesting to you. So the factors affecting the underpass use, the primary length and the vegetation cover certainly does have an effect, and the smaller proportion of population use it, there's a downside for using underpasses as well, because here the animals are actually subject to predation. So they, even though they haven't found any relationships here, I don't know. This bit here, found that the Quenda became locally extinct as soon as the foxes moved in. So that's why we've made sure that when we did the new Perth-Bunbury Highway, we actually made sure that we had a fox trapping project as well. The problems with underpasses and their potential solutions. These are Brian's words. So the factors that affect the use of underpass by Quendas and western bobtails, does the underpass help with gene flow? And certainly with western grey kangaroos, they'll use them, and they must be, the gene flow must be affected by that. There must be some reason you would crawl through 100 metres of tunnel. So a lot of this information is well and truly above me as far as Brian's got that information, and I really don't want to delve any further into it, other than we can get that information if anyone's really interested. So Brian's got a lot of these. This is more of what I can relate to. The actual gene flow on the Paganoni Reserve and the Serpentine River area. You can see that the freeway's virtually cut any access off to the river, so it's very important for us to try and re-establish that. The Roe Highway area, you can see that the areas that the animals are living in are pretty well conserved Banksy woodland, and the population is well worth the effort to try and protect it. So Brian asked us all those questions again that we've been asked previously. On Mandurah Entrance Road, which is the last project that I was involved in before moving back into Bunbury, we actually had separate treatments. There's the large underpass, so that's got multi-use for fire control, local people and fauna, and the kangaroo population. We also used smaller underpasses there, 600 millimetres for, and they were used by turtles, linking two wetlands, and the large western grey kangaroos certainly will use underpasses around 1200 millimetres in preference to the smaller ones as a suggested construction size. And the question is that can the fauna underpasses help solve the problems of habit fragmentation in suburbs? And certainly it's proven that we can certainly get the fauna to move from east to west or north to south. Certainly what has come out of the work that's been done over the last few years is that the actual shorter underpasses are better, with good vegetation cover in the entrances. Constructing them in continuous lengths was probably not to be recommended, and possibly it's better that we build a bit of a secure living area within the median strip for animals to encourage the use of it. And basically with the main roads in the southwest here, we've got underpasses spread now from the Kwinana Freeway right down into the Bustleton bypass, and they're all actually being used by various animals. So as far as I'm concerned, they're quite successful. But the important thing with all of them is to make sure that with underpasses that they're actually fenced and set up properly so that the animals can access them and are led to use them. That seems to be the success. So that's me all done.
Just on that last slide there, if you can go back to it for a tick, Alan, I'm just wondering, what will the Western Greys who have motorbikes, how will they get across? Okay.
They'll probably need further training.
Sorry, I couldn't help that. Carrie, would you like to come up here, and Francis as well? If you've got questions now for either of these three, now is a good time to ask them. Chris?
Yeah, Alan, just south of Bunbury, where the Preston to Ocean Regional Park is going to be built there, linking the Maidens Reserve with Mania Park. A lot of roos get bowled over there in that very narrow strip. Does Main Roads have any future plans to actually build an underpass where there's already a road, so retrofit an animal underpass? Because that area is there's a lot of roos bowled over there.
Yeah, one of the problems we have in Main Road is if we can get in front of these type of planning issues, when we do new works, we can actually provide the facilities. So trying to retrofit it afterwards would be fairly difficult. Things like 5 Mile Brook and places like that along the Bustle Highway, they've got potential for us to do fencing there and actually utilise the current culvert structures, etc. And that would probably work quite efficiently. But Mania Park, it's pretty difficult there. I think.
Is it a money situation now?
Certainly, that's the only way we can get these things funded is when we've got a large project. We're able to get funding to support this type of thing, and of course they're a part of the environmental approvals for the project. So, but to come in afterwards is pretty difficult for us.
How big is the demonstrated need that you see there?
Well, I see it as fairly major because they're setting this up, or the idea is to have a regional park there. There's really the only link between the ocean to the Preston. The main link is cut by the highway in that place there. And you've got large macropods. You've got western greys. They're obviously making their way east to west across there, and it's a bit of a joke that we're calling it a regional park. And yet there's a major obstruction there to large macropods like western grey kangaroos.
Yeah, there's probably a bit more I can add to that as far as we're probably not on a winner with saving that part of the connection. But with the Bunbury Outer Ring Road being constructed, we've actually considered all that, and we're actually building fauna corridors, etc., with underpass structures that will allow fauna to move from Preston River through into the airport area, into Mania Park there, that now will be protected. And there'll be a realignment of the South West Highway in 10 years' time. And that'll allow us to get more of that sort of structure to fit it all together, so that the Preston River Park, Mania Park, and what we've done on the Bunbury Outer Ring Road will actually all have a linkage that will be able to be used and will be vegetated and be, that should be sustainable and should work.
Right at the back of the room. Sorry, Rena. Yeah.
Thanks, Gerry. I wanted to ask Francis if in the observations about the boxes, the tubes, has there been any evidence of or opportunities to peer into them, take them down and see if they've been used by reptiles or other birds or something else that's fallen in and contaminated it, so to speak? Okay, all right, so we have had the opportunity to look in some boxes. Once they're up in the tree, unless you've got tree climbing gear, it's the cherry picker, and that becomes quite expensive. There were a number that have been monitored, and yes, there was a number of other bird species found in them. That is possibly a negative, but if other species are colonising those nest boxes, then possibly there's a natural hollow that's free for the black cockatoos.
Or is that mimicking what happens in nature anyway, that other species use the black cockatoo's habitat?
Well, yes, I expect so. It's about the time of the breeding cycle as well, so I suppose that some hollows would be used by a number of species during the course of the year.
So sort of a timeshare?
Something like that, yeah. With regard to the question about the feral bees, that's been one of the successes of the cockatoo. The design of it is that chimney stack design, and the purpose for the open top is the feral bees don't particularly like the exposure to the weather, and so we've had, that's one of the reasons, because the feral bees was one of the big problems, around that 2005, the colonisation of those natural hollows. So the open nature, it hasn't excluded feral bees in total, and we did find out that a couple at one site were colonised by feral bees, but that was during that was a couple of years ago during the really long hot summer, and so the conditions were dry. And I just put some brochures on the back table as well, by the way.
Cool. Rena?
Quick question to Alan about the cost of the underpass, overpass and cost of bridges for a 3-lane highway. Like, what kind of ballpark cost are we looking at to install these things?
Yeah, this is pretty scary. Nothing comes cheap. The underpasses, basically we've got around a lot of the cost issues with underpasses by coercing our drainage engineers to use a little bit of flexibility, where we install super large oversized pipes we only need a 300mm culvert, so we'll put in a 1.2 culvert. So that's a fairly sensible way of doing it. But the large...
If you had to retrofit it, what sort of money would you be looking at?
Well, basically you're looking at about $140,000 for a single road crossing. So that's $200,000 for a double road crossing. The Possum Rope Bridge that we've built on Caves Road is about $90,000. So, pardon?
That's the one, the Possum Rope Bridge.
The one on Cave.
In Europe, that's a lot of land bridges.
Yeah, once.
Why we don't have them in Western Australia? Do they work elsewhere? Are they cost prohibitive?
You mean like the rope bridge, the Possum Rope Bridge?
No, the culvert.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Do we have those here?
Yeah, we've only got the one that I know of in Perth, but on Bunbury Outer Ring Road we are proposing to build a rope bridge. I mean, a land bridge. That will be incorporated as part of the local road network, and basically you're building another 2 metres of bridge, which is another lane. So it is quite expensive, but the actual physical side that you'll have for passing of fauna will be about 2 metres wide.
2 lanes, 1 middle. Sorry. Yasmin?
It's just a quick question for Francis. Considering the tree species that you target for the nests, it seems that there's a correlation between dieback and cankers and the targeted species for the trees. Have you seen any correlation between when you go out there to search for the trees? Which trees do you pick? Like the sick trees, because some of them are berries, for example, and then the jarrahs especially. Do you keep track of the areas where you would see a lot of sick trees around the area and the correlation between them?
That's a hard question. We would try and avoid. That's one of the reasons why I use the arborist. Okay, so all the tree stuff, all the tree questions, goes to him. Gerry might have said in the introduction that my expertise is in agribusiness and accounting, so and a bit of hard work on occasion. So I do use the arborist, and that's probably the key reason for using that sort of guy is to get that sort of information before when we go round and pick the trees. So he's heavily involved in that process as well.
Pip?
Yeah, it's another question for Francis. I don't know whether you've had this new before, but